Do you remember Breaking Bad where Jesse is crying about Walt and he's screaming, he can't keep getting away with this?
Yep.
He can't keep getting away with it. The Packers, right? They really found their next superstar quarterback for the next 15 seasons.
I mean,
how do they keep getting away with it, Tom?
If Jordan Love continues to play the way he did in the second half of last season and in the playoffs, the last interception notwithstanding, they are going to be a factor for the next 10, 15 years until they inevitably draft the next guy and Jordan Love is 35 and gets his feelings hurt and gets mad, but then ends up coming out and having his best year. I mean, that's literally like the pattern of it. That's the part that's the most amazing. You think about, they make the trade. Brett Favre is a top draft pick, second-round pick in 1991. They trade a first for him in 1992. He comes into Green Bay. I think it's week 4. Don Majkowski gets hurt. Favre takes over, and for the next decade, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. Obviously, the MVP years, 95, 96, 97, yep. That stretch, he is one of the best players in football. You get to the early portion of the 2000s, he starts to have thoughts about retirement. He obviously goes through some difficult personal things during that time as well. By 2005, he's not been showing up for the offseason program. He's talking every year about whether he's going to retire. You go out and you draft Aaron Rodgers. And Favre's feelings are hurt, and he's not super happy about it. They have an icy relationship initially, and then they kind of, by 2006, 2007, they're getting along. They're, having dinner together. They're becoming closer. But Favre, with a lot of help from Mike McCarthy and the offense that he brought in, 2007, Favre's the runner-up in the MVP balloting. Behind, I believe it was Peyton Manning that year. It was either Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. But he's runner-up in the MVP balloting. And then what happens after that season? They press him for answers. He decides he's going to retire. Then he changes his mind and ends up going someplace else. Rodgers, meanwhile, has a decade there where he's one of the best players in football. He wins 4 MVPs. He wins the Super Bowl just like Favre did. Then all of a sudden, he starts to distance himself from his teammates, and he's not around as much, and he's concerned with the contract. What do? They go and they draft Jordan Love, and they trade up to go and get him. That ends up with Rodgers having a couple of his best seasons and winning a couple more MVP awards before a down season in his case. Favre didn't have that in Green Bay. He went out on as high of a note as you can get, but for the interception he threw to Corey Webster in the NFC Championship game. But you still have a very similar pattern here. Now Love steps in. What you have here ultimately is you have a level of confidence and fortitude, intestinal fortitude to go and do the thing that is going to cause a ripple. It's going to disrupt your status quo with your franchise quarterback who's won MVPs and won a Super Bowl and done so much, and everybody's got his jersey. And this is Green Bay, Wisconsin we're talking about. I mean, people have Packer-themed rooms. They have posters of these guys. People paint the fences around the stadium. It's just, I lived there for 3 years. I worked at the Press Gazette. I covered the Rodgers-Favre transition. It is a different type of an environment there. You also don't have an owner who might be more susceptible to short-term thinking than the CEO, the top executive, plus a board of directors. That is a different dynamic that exists in Green Bay as opposed to other places here. They're always thinking about the long-term health of the organization that maybe in ways that a single person, an owner, might make emotional decisions at times. Green Bay doesn't have that. The GM and the head coach have always had a pretty good degree of autonomy as opposed to doing what the people upstairs want them to do. Mm-hmm. So it's not luck. It's good scouting, and it's been the same lineage of scouts there for 30-plus years, from Ron Wolf, who made the Favre trade, to his disciple Ted Thompson, who drafted Rodgers, to Brian Gutekunst, who grew up under Ted. It's all the same type of thinking. They build the roster the same way. They're not overly reliant on free agency. They're a draft-to-develop program, and they believe in going and trying to get the quarterback all the time. It sounds real simple when you put it that way, but it's hard to replicate in other places because you got to hire the right people, you got to draft the right people, and you got to show a level of patience that outside of places like Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, that level of patience just historically hasn't existed.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.